Hi people, it's me again, obviously, Mighty Oration. As always, and as usual. As always, and as usual, the topic or subject for today or tonight, in this video in any case, is going to be the Ars Nova and the merit of the Mighty Oration. Now, you can check the article that corresponds to this video, and this video is also going to be embedded in that article, linked in the description of this video. The article has interesting links and whatnot here and there, but generally speaking, by 90%, I'm going to say the same things or be saying the same things that I am saying in this. I'm going to be saying the same things that are in the article. So yeah, but still, it's still a good idea to check out the article. Heavily recommended to do so. Just for the links. So the links alone already make it worth the time and effort, as is the case overall. Anyways, the Ars Nova is book 5 from the Lesser Key of Solomon. I'm not going to get into what the Lesser Key of Solomon is. Anybody that's watching this, especially someone that's not familiar with magic overall or what I'm talking about, literally check the link in the description and check the article in the description, linked in the description, and click. I heavily recommend that if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that you click on every link, and so that you're caught up on the basics at the very least in terms of familiarizing yourself, and then you'll understand what I'm talking about. The things that I'm about to say are primarily for existing sorcerers or people that are at least knowledgeable on the Lesser Key of Solomon. So I'm not going to even remotely explain what the Lesser Key of Solomon is, just an FYI. The Lesser Key of Solomon, in any case, fellow practitioners and anyone that is knowledgeable on this subject, most of you that know the Lesser Key of Solomon know that it's comprised of 5 books, as far as I know, within a conventional manner. I haven't heard of any other additional books. By default, any person that Googles the Lesser Key of Solomon, or they pick up a copy, blah, 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 etc., etc., there are 5 books, okay? Like the Goetia is book number 1, you've got the Theurgia Goetia, and it just goes on and on and on and on. I'm not going to get into all of that. The last book, book number 5, is called the Ars Nova, A-R-S-N-O-V-A. Now, within the Ars Nova, generally speaking, consists of divine names that are generally used throughout the operations for summoning spirits in the Lesser Key of Solomon overall and or as a whole. So names like Yahweh's name, Tetragrammaton, Anaphaxiton. These are all names that sorcerers are familiar with. These are all names that refer to God either directly or indirectly, in a matter of speaking, within a magical context to essentially get spirits to do your bidding and whatnot, blah, 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 etc., etc. Okay, I mean that in a neutral way, obviously, not in a disrespectful manner. My point is that that's what the Ars Nova contains. And now here it comes, okay, the icing on the cake, honestly, is the Mighty Oration. Now, before I get into all of that, I'm going to recite and or read out loud the specific section of the Ars Nova, which is the focus of this video. I'm going to read the edited part, specifically by Benjamin Rowe in June 1999. Ars Nova, Book 5 of the Legemeton. Legemeton, Legemeton. It's simply what the thingy is also called, the Lesser Key of Solomon, just to let you know. Transcribed from Sloan MS 2731 and prepared in Adobe Acrobat format by Benjamin Rowe, June 1999. Typeset in Adobe Caslon. So it's simply the editor, honestly. That's all. It's just a thingy. Benjamin Rowe edited a good deal of. You have a good deal of editions, essentially, of occultists that edited these books and made them mainstream, as in accessible to a worldwide audience in a modern format to the point where it's understandable. So I simply want to highlight that they essentially found the original documents or manuscripts or the last known rendition of it, and they simply, they filled in the blanks where there were blanks to the best of their ability. They took a look at everything and they edited it for fullness or for completion. And shout out to obviously the editors such as Crowley and Sloan. Sloan and Benjamin Rowe and whatnot, you name it, as well as the original authors and or all the people that have renditioned this and that have released prior versions to this. So obviously, their contributions are invaluable to this subject. Now, introduction. This is the editor, Benjamin Rowe, talking or speaking. There is some question whether the Ars Nova qualifies as a separate book of the Legimeton. In my copy of the manuscript, so Sloan, year 2731, I think it stands for a year, obviously, it can't stand for anything else, honestly, as far as I can tell or see. It consists of a single sheet of paper. It's only distinguished from the preceding Ars Armadel by the words finis at the end of that book. There is no new title for the text that follows. It is my belief that the lack of a title and an error at whatever time the pages were numbered has caused previous publishers and commentators on the Ars Nova to put its 2 pages in the reverse of the sequence in which they should be shown. Using the opposite of the accepted order puts the presentation in a logical sequence and clears up the mystery surrounding the Mighty Oration, which has puzzled previous commentators. Sloan 2731 is characterized by an almost obsessive concern with conserving space. Each sheet of paper is used to the maximum. The writing is minuscule. The margins are very narrow, and the copyist wrote in what we now call landscape or orientation in order to fit as many words as possible on each line. There are only 2 places in the manuscript where much as half a page is left blank, or as half page is left blank, and one of these is in the Ars Nova. If the accepted order of the pages is used, this blank comes into the middle of the presentation for no obvious reason. It seems more reasonable to conclude that this blank comes at the end of a section and thus at the end of the entire Legimeton. It's blank because the work is finished at that point. Most of the text of the Ars Nova clearly relates to the first book of the Legimeton, the Goetia, and the essentially tools of the trade. I say essentially because tools of the trade is in between quotations or quotation marks. Described therein, the magical circle and triangle, the hexagrams within the circle and the pentagram surrounding it. It listed divine names written in each of these and adds a short prayer with 1 line of prayer per name. This list takes up the entire first page. I believe that the prayers were to be spoken either while drawing the divine names and figures or later while consecrating the place of the work. On the opposite side of the sheet, there are 3 sections. In the first, several sets of Hebrew characters are shown with accompanying names in the Latin alphabet. The latter do not appear to be transliterations of the Hebrew, which in any case is only partly legible. The second section is a prayer that incorporates some of the Latin alphabet words from the previous section, but it actually makes more sense with those words excised. It's a prayer to God to confine evil and aerial spirits in a brass urn. This immediately brings to mind the brass vessel of Solomon shown in the Goetia. Possibly this is a prayer to be said while consecrating or preparing such a vessel. However, the divine names in this prayer are not shown on the vessel in my copy of the manuscript, nor those on the vessel in the Crowley or Matters edition of the Goetia. Possibly this section is a borrowing from some document outside the Legimeton tradition. The extreme corruption of the divine names would suggest it. With the order of the pages reversed, the final section is the Mighty Oration. Nelson White puzzles over this invocation, wondering whether the magician is supposed to address the spirit as if it were a thief. The explanation is simple. It is not part of the Legimeton as such. Rather, this section is a curse directed against any person who steals the book in which it is written. Such curses were common in the times when books were reproduced by hand. The time and effort it took to copy them made them much more valuable commodities than our modern mass-produced volumes. Its presence in this position is the final confirmation that the order of pages has been reversed. It should be noted that in the introductory description of the Legimeton presented in the Goetia volume of this series, this book is sometimes erroneously titled Ars Notoria. The Notoria is a separate and much more complex work, the text of which was included without its vitally important illustrations as an appendix in one copy of the Legimeton. Signed, Benjamin Rowe. So yeah, that's essentially it. And then essentially the divine names begin, and it finishes with the Mighty Oration, but before the Mighty Oration you simply have another citation. Essentially to command spirits to do thy bidding, so to speak, towards a specific purpose and whatnot, blah blah blah, etc., etc. You get the gist of it. That's the second page, essentially. That's why he said it was in 2 pages. The first page contains the divine names, as far as I can tell. Not that I'm looking at it in all utmost detail. Okay, like I said, I'm here to highlight the Mighty Oration part. The second page of the Ars Nova consists of divine names in a different context, or spirit names, one of the two. Like I said, a citation and then the Mighty Oration. Now that I think of it, in relation to what he said, right, that it was like a curse essentially to prevent anyone from stealing that book. Yes, but at the same time also no. It wasn't just meant for that purpose, but I don't blame him for not being aware of it, provided that he's not aware of it. It doesn't just serve this purpose. I'm here to tell the public what the Mighty Oration also has, something that is arguably much more interesting than simply a curse towards anyone that wants to misuse the book, because honestly, based on my knowledge and experience, you generally speaking don't even need to curse a book. Okay, if you think you're going to misuse information that contains spirits, those spirits definitely will make you be sorry. But still, a curse was customary back in those times. Samael says, and I also agree with that. Not that I wasn't going to say that, but simply as a reminder. So it's not just that. Now, I also denoted in the article that before I started with this subject, to not confuse the two, which is correct. Now, he does say, Rowe, or Benjamin Rowe, Mr. Benjamin Rowe, does say that the Ars Notoria is confused with the Ars Nova, or vice versa, especially in the Goetia. And I think I do remember seeing that back in the day when I first came into contact with the book 1 of the Lesser Key of Solomon, so the Goetia. But at the same time, when I look into the Goetia specifically, I do see an addition, but I think this is literally just also an editorial addition. So I think the original had that mistake, because if you look into the obviously edited version of the Goetia, it clearly says the Ars Nova should not be confused with the Ars Notoria, notary art, attributed variously to Solomon and Apollonius of Tyania, which latter rather appears to be a medieval magical derivative of classical art of memory based around the contemplation of images or notae while repeating prayers. The Ars Notoria was condemned by Aquinas, cited in Yeats' Arts of Memory, and various Renaissance writers such as Erasmus and Agrippa in De Vanitate. Robert Turner produced an English translation which was made less than useful by the omissions of the figures. This translation was incorporated into some latter MSS and printed editions of the Legimeton. Some figures from medieval MSS of the Ars Notoria are printed in an article in a volume called Conjuring Spirits, Text and Tradition of Medieval Ritual Magic, edited by Claire Fanger, and then it says in between brackets, Stroud, Sutton. So yeah, that's just to drive the point home that the two are not one and the same. I think I remember in some editions, you get different editions, the same way that you have different versions of the Bible, like Old and New Testament, like King James's Bible, and then you have other variations, so to speak. It's the same thing. But I remember that when I came into contact with the Goetia for the very first time I read it, the edition that I had, I think I vaguely remember that it hinted the same thing, that the Ars Notoria and the Ars Nova were the same. So the Ars Nova was called the Ars Notoria for some reason or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I think so. Then again, like I said, this was so long ago, lifetimes ago, so man, it doesn't matter all too much either way. This is just for clarificationary purposes. Now on to the main course, or the main dish, definitely. The Mighty Oration. This oration, I'm going to read it right now, and I'm stating out loud, not that it's necessary, my intent already gives that away, that I'm only reading it for test purposes. I'm still saying it. I'm not reading it with any magical intent in mind, other than purely for the purposes of speculation regarding discussing this subject with the viewers, those that are watching. So yeah, here goes. The Mighty Oration. By the most great and almighty power of Alpha and Omega, Jehovah and Emmanuel, And by him that divided the Red Sea, and by that great power that turned all the waters and the rivers of Egypt into blood, and turned all the dust into flies and chains, and by that great power that brought frogs all over the land of Egypt, and entered into the king's palace and chambers, and by that great power that terrible thunder and lightning and hailstone mixed with fire, and sent locusts which did destroy all growing things in the whole land of Egypt, and by that great power that destroyed all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both of man and beast, and by that great power that divided the hard rock and rivers of water issued out of the sand of the wilderness, and by that great power that led the children of Israel into the land of Canaan, and by that great power that destroyed Sennacherib's great host, and by that great and almighty power of him that walked on the sea as on dry land, and by that almighty power that raised the dead Lazarus out of his grave, and by that almighty power of the blessed and holy and glorious Trinity that did cast the devil and all disobedient angels out of heaven into hell, that thou thief return immediately and restore the goods again which thou hast stolen away. Therefore in and by the names of the Almighty God before rehearsed I charge thee, thou thief, to restore the goods again immediately, or else the wrath of God may fall upon thee and force thee to come immediately. Amen. So yeah, that's essentially what the Mighty Oration entails or contains. The name Sennacherib, I think it's an Egyptian city or a region in ancient Egypt, or it was a region in ancient Egypt. You know, it could have been modern day Tunisia. Like before that, Tunis was called Carthage was there, the Carthaginian Empire. But I think this was either before BC, in BC times, or slightly AD. So either before Christ or Anno Domini or something along those lines. In any case, I think that's what Sennacherib stands for. There is no explanation or any kind of asterisk that gives away what Sennacherib explains about. Hold on, let me just thingy. Let me Google what Sennacherib stands for. Yeah, nothing. I'm simply getting online results, but I'm not getting. Yeah, like I said, it's the closest thing that comes close is Sennacherib. Sennacherib, I'm gonna link it in the description below. Simply stands for Sennacherib was a king of was the king. That's literally what I get from Wikipedia. Sennacherib it means sin has replaced the brothers. Was the king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire from the death of his father Sargon II. It's in present day or modern. It was in modern day Iraq, specifically Nimrud. He was born in Nimrud. So yeah, it's a reference in any case to I think a region, as far as I can tell, a region in what was ancient Egypt. That's why it says Sennacherib's great host. Potentially it was a reference to the king himself and the fact that his army was annihilated, similar to a biblical plague, if you will. You name it, something along those lines. Anyways, now, yeah, I'm sorry that this whole thing is taking longer than usual, but I need to explain everything properly. I'm not going to cut any corners or anything like that. Now, the Mighty Oration, like I state in the article, people that read the article know what I'm talking about. This thing I was drawn to this Mighty Oration for a week or so, and I saw the reason. I just got to it, and my astral body explained it to me, my perfected infinity power level astral body. He explained it to me, and he told me that the Mighty Oration in the Ars Nova in general, but specifically and mainly the Mighty Oration, is quite potent for any sorcerer, any magician. And he showed me that it is so potent because throughout time, essentially, I'm sorry, I'm simply checking something. Yeah, throughout time, essentially, not essentially, just throughout time, a lot of sorcerers have essentially worked with this. You name it, Egyptian sorcerers, any and all sorcerers that you can think of. A lot of them have used this Mighty Oration, and this it's therefore laden with energy. And the fact alone that it was included in the Lesser Key of Solomon also adds more power to it. in tandem or in conjunction with the magical systems as a whole that precede it, in a matter of speaking. So the Goetia, the Theurgia Goetia, the Ars Armadel, the Ars Paulina, or Paulina, or you name it. So yeah, a lot of guys have worked with this since around BC times or AD times, for ages. And that's what makes it so potent. And he showed me a summary of sorcerers, briefly, as just examples, for the sake of an example. Sorcerers that have worked with it, and I saw that when these guys recited the oration, for example, or when they were busy, stuff happened, like glasses shattered around their house and whatnot. Like, for example, having a glass, like a glass cup or something, or anything, a glass urn on their table, and it just cracks immediately. And it just goes on, okay? It simply indicated the potency that the Mighty Oration has, but it is meant literally throughout time. So, yeah, the Mighty Oration, he told me, is similar to the way I used to work, where I put a pentacle on the altar of every spirit I work. It is good as a booster. It's really good as a booster, like really, really strong. What else can I say? So it serves the same purpose essentially. And the benefit that this Mighty Oration has is that if you were to, for example, recite it before a ritual in any way, shape, or form, whether it be a ritual to a spirit or a miscellaneous ritual, where you use your own energy or anything like that, it greatly enhances the power and potency of that ritual as a whole. I don't need to use it personally because I've already surpassed that mark by, hypothetically speaking, an indescribable margin. Only hypothetically speaking. But yeah, I've already long surpassed all of this. I'm simply saying, from a neutral point of view, or not mundane, from a neutral perspective and or point of view, just the average practitioner, even the average person that were to undertake any kind of ritual, like someone that does their very first ritual for the very first time, you name it, the Mighty Oration definitely hypercharges your ritual and the results that accompany it. And all the person needs to do, the magician, the operator, or the sorcerer or sorceress in question, needs to have it with them, not literally at all times, but let's just say printed on a piece of paper in their pocket, or it needs to be on their computer or device, you name it. Specifically when they engage in occult activity, it's not so much necessary or needed when they're simply out and about and going about daily life. It's purely meant or primarily meant within ritualistic purposes, or for ritualistic purposes. And the benefits are that, like I said, even if you're a beginning magician, spirits will readily obey you. It doesn't matter how difficult they are to work with, how difficult they are, how mischievous or outright malevolent they are, they will obey without question. My astral body told me that it's similar to the first pinnacle of the sun with Metatron's face on it that I had tattooed on me a long time ago. Yeah, that I had tattooed on me a long time ago. See, even this happening is not a coincidence. Okay, me hitting my hand. It doesn't hurt. That's what's so hilarious. It doesn't hurt. I simply said how instinctively. This is all because of the Mighty Oration, because I'm busy reciting it, how potent it is. Yeah, what else can I say? Yeah, so those are the benefits if you're someone that practices, and any ritual will be supercharged essentially. And it's generally speaking not necessary if you work with spirits to put it on the altars of the spirits you work with. Not necessary at all. It's because it's overkill. It will lead to, like, it'll be the equivalent of working with a seraphim angel or a cherubim angel, a cherub, like the ones like Zechariah and Abrasa, the ones that I already have on my website. It's too overpowered. But simply having it on you for ritualistic purposes, like I already explained earlier, in your pocket, it's simply you simply having its present, no need to recite it constantly. Just reciting it once before engaging in the ritual, and then having that parchment on you, whether it be digitally or physically or whatever. The most practical example would be simply printing it out and then folding it and simply putting it in your pocket, and not forgetting to briefly take it out when you're going to change clothes or do laundry or something. That's a practical way of having it with you all times, or simply folding it and then putting it in some kind of talisman or a locket, and then closing the locket and wearing the locket constantly, but primarily when you're engaging in your magical activity or ritualistic activity, stuff like that. It will definitely supercharge all of your stuff. Okay, it will substantially boost all of your ritualistic and magical workings. And I also did an astrological reading of this to see specifically how this would take place. Again, you can look for all of that in the description of this video or in the article. We'll see. I think I'm simply going to link everything in the article alongside this video. It's more practical. Yeah, anyways, the astrological chart conveyed exactly how things would take place and how the oration works. The oration, essentially, whatever ritual you engage in, whether you're working with a spirit or with some other form of energy, the energy will essentially, the mighty oration essentially commands and prompts, almost forcing the energy to work tirelessly, to essentially not stop until the objective has been accomplished. It's like when someone is like super motivated all the while drinking or having drunk 20 Red Bulls, the person will be so hyped up and the person will literally just like stop at nothing in that context. And as a result, the person will also be abundant in activity. So example, you work with the spirit, you use your mighty oration, you have your mighty oration on you before you engage in the ritual with your spirit or you host a ritual. You recite the mighty oration once and you place it in your pocket the way I described earlier, just as an example or for exemplary purposes. Then that spirit is going to work extra hard, and that spirit will not stop until the objective has been accomplished. And the spirit will be super active, like hyperactive, so that you can get what you want. It's like when you tell someone, hey, stop at nothing, okay? Literally just go nuts and do not stop. Just completely go nuts and keep going and going and going and going, and do not rest until the job is done, okay? Even if it means that you die while trying to do so. In a matter of speaking, that's what you can compare this to. It's just like one hell of a, like I said, it's like if you were, for example, asleep and you drank like the strongest cup of coffee ever, okay? You're immediately going to go from like, to like this, Oh yeah, I still need to get work done. Okay, yeah. That's what the mighty oration essentially does to the spirit in question. Yeah, I also need to say this. No offense to anyone out there, but I'm simply saying this. I wasn't intending on including this, but please don't be stupid to think that for whatever purposes that this can ever be used against me. It's just going to come back to bite you in the ass, literally, because the effect of the mighty oration will literally just fucking slap you in your face, and you're going to endure all the negativities that accompany it. So don't even think about it. Any person out there that was even remotely considering this, because the notion is already laughable to me. Let me see what else. Is there anything else I forgot? Yeah, in the article you can also find a copy of the Ars Nova. You can download it from my file online cloud or file storage. Oh yeah, and one last thing. I almost forgot one thing. Thank goodness, because I knew that there's something that I was still going to say. Couldn't put my finger on it. Yeah, one last thing. As you can clearly hear, or as you heard when I was reciting the oration, that is primarily, and also the words of the editor, Mr. Benjamin Rowe, God rest his soul, so to speak. Bless him and rest his soul, provided that he's passed on, either way. The Mighty Oration at the end essentially refers to a thief. So the oration is specifically aimed at someone, at anybody that intends on stealing anything from you. And the Mighty Oration essentially coerces the person by Almighty God's will, as is everything, to not to bring it back, to bring back what he or she stole. Yeah, this is also very important. That part needs to be edited and simply adjusted based on your personal desire and your intent. For example, just like I said, the Mighty Oration by the most great and almighty power of Alpha, Omega, blah, 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 etc., etc. And then when you get to the part of, into hell that thou thief return immediately and restore the goods, the last 3 or 4 lines or sentences, you need to simply edit that. Instead of thou thief and return immediately what thou hast stolen, you need to simply substitute your intent. For example, if I wanted to be able to magically teleport to any location in the world, like the same way you see in sci-fi movies, like Puchich, I would essentially substitute it and simply say, all disobedient angels out of heaven into hell, that I am capable of teleporting to any location within this world at a glance and at my behest. And then you continue, therefore, and by the name of the Almighty God, before rehearsed, I again desire the ability to do as such, be able to teleport globally. And then you simply end with Amen. Again, you get the gist of it. It simply needs to be edited. If someone seriously wants to do this and they need help with the editing and the adjusting based on their intent, then yeah, I can easily do so for you. Obviously not for free. It's going to cost you. No freeloading parasites. No. And yeah, that's essentially it. Bear in mind that obviously what I said applies in general. I'm obviously not saying that the Mighty Oration will literally work for every single person. You as an individual, your own personal life circumstances and conditions and all the other stuff that make up who you are also matter, obviously. Your personality, blah, 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 etc., etc. But this is generally speaking the gist of it. And again, like I said, that's why I felt attracted to this. Because it's happened, it's been a week, but every single time I simply just either not dismissed it, I simply put it on the back burner. I essentially just postponed it. I said to myself, yeah, I'll do it some other time. I don't feel like doing it now. Yeah, I'll do it some other time. I don't feel like doing it now. Yeah, I'll do it some other time. I don't feel like doing it now. And now I'm seeing why. And my astral body explained this to me. And I said to myself, oh, so that's why I'm attracted to this. Not actually using it, but I feel compelled, not oddly, I felt plainly compelled, and I feel compelled to cover it on my online content, my website and YouTube channel and whatnot. That's why. The sheer potency that it has. No wonder. Because I was specifically drawn to the Mighty Oration. My intuition told me there is something about this oration. This thing is really strong. Okay, this thing is really, really strong. I really need to take a look at this. This reminds me of the Bornless ritual, by the way. Anything interesting that is related to this subject, wait until the end screen of this video. I'm almost done. Or check the article linked in the description below, just like I said. That is all, guys. See you until next time. Bye. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section, as always, and as usual.